Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What appears to be a back-and-forth exchange between strange bedfellows. Two fighters, two guys you don't even expect to cross paths as they campaign at different weights and they seem to be in different trajectories. Gervonta Davis and Conor Benn.
Conor Benn uploaded a laundry list of names he's got his eyes on. Devin Haney, Chris Eubank Jr., Spence, Brooke, and Barrios.
To which Gervonta Davis responded, "Not funny the way you looked last night. Give me 3 weeks and a weekend in the Turks, and yo ass is grass. You hear me?" That's what Gervonta said to Conor Benn. I wonder why he doesn't have that same energy for the guys at his own weight. Young Conroy responded by saying, "Oh, here is the woman beating Munchkin from Oz. Let's do it next."
Why doesn't he keep this same energy for Vasyl Lomachenko or Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, or Devin Haney? Why Conor?
Put the cart before the horse thinking that Gervonta Davis is in any way, shape, or form serious just because he's getting into a back-and-forth exchange with someone on social media. He's gotten into these back-and-forth exchanges with fighters several times over the years, and it's seldom ever resulted in a fight. Years ago, it was with Tevin Farmer. More recent years, it's been with Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney. I think Teofimo Lopez to a lesser extent. Gervonta, he's just talking.
Yeah.
He's just talking. You can't take him seriously.
Yeah.
In any event, he said, "Sure, why not? Where would you like your ass whooping at, bruv?"
So wait, let me see if I understand this. The guy that's too small to box Devin Haney at 140 wants to fight a guy who fights at 147?
Guy who fights above 147 these days, above 147. I think the last fight, the Dobson fight, wasn't that at junior middle?
Yeah.
Conor responded by saying, "Don't be all talk either, you little shrimp. Eddie Hearn, drop the Munchkin a DM and get this fight made next. I'm sure he'll screenshot the conversation anyway, so we'll see who's full of shit. See you soon."
Young Conroy didn't look particularly impressive against the then unbeaten Dobson.
Pete Dobson, and against him, Conor looked a little bit more human than he usually does, which has given rise to criticism now that he's been caught red-handed with a banned substance in his system and he's in the hot seat under the hot lights. He's not the same wrecking machine that he used to be, which is an understandable critique, though need I remind you that his last 2 fights have been at junior middleweight, above welterweight where he normally campaigns. So if he's not looking like the same wrecking machine and not racking up those highlight reel knockouts the same way that he used to, maybe it's because he's campaigning at a higher weight than he normally does, though. Don't let that get in the way of the angry lynch mob.
Don't let facts get in the way of feelings.
That is how some people's minds work, so should we expect a Conor Benn versus Gervonta Davis cross-Atlantic grudge match?
No.
In the near future, and alas?
No.
I think it's all hot air. I think it's all bullshit the way all of Gervonta Davis's Twitter wars turn out to be hot air and bullshit. This fight isn't gonna happen.
Then what is Gervonta Davis doing?
Or whoever's got Gervonta Davis's phone, whoever commandeered it. I got a sneaking suspicion that wasn't even him that Conor Benn was talking to. Maybe somebody sat beside him. Maybe his girlfriend. Don't think there's gonna be a Gervonta Davis versus Conor Benn fight. We have enough trouble trying to get Gervonta Davis in the ring with his own countrymen and his own contemporaries at his own weights. He doesn't fight them. I don't think he's gonna fight Conroy. And all this has done is left Gervonta Davis open to criticism as seemingly he's interested in fighting Conor, but Conor fights all the way up there at 147 and above.
Up until now, the conversation has been that Devin Haney, who now campaigns at super lightweight, is too big for Gervonta Davis. But Conor Benn isn't. He campaigns at 147.
Listen, Gervonta Davis is the fighter who talked down anyone from undisputed champion Josh Taylor to unified champion Teofimo to Devin to George. He talks down fighters that are more accomplished than the fighters that he ends up fighting.
You're always hearing about how, Josh Taylor don't sell nothing, or Devin don't sell nothing, Shakur Stevenson don't sell nothing, but Mario Barrios does.
What?
Isaac Cruz did. I never even heard of the man until Gervonta fought him.
In a nutshell, he might be 28 or 29 years old or whatever he is, but he's got a baby brain, this guy. He's got a baby brain, often contradicts himself, and he's not going to fight Conor Benn. He's not going to fight Devin either.
He's not.
You can't hold him to his word the way you would with some others because he's got a baby brain. His fans, they're idiots. They think he hails the moon and the stars.
They're not gonna hold his feet to the fire. They're not gonna hold him accountable.
This is much ado about nothing as far as a fight and making one, though it is something that could come back to haunt him, something that could be thrown back in his face. You're saying what? Devin's too big, he rehydrates too much, but you were okay to fight a welterweight. So what's the problem?
He's a time waster.
He's just talking. He's not gonna do anything.
He's just talking like Leonard Ellerbe's just talking. Leonard Ellerbe says Frank Martin can't beat Gervonta Davis. Oh, well, that settles it then.
If Leonard said it, it must be true. Leonard Ellerbe, who picked Caleb Plant to beat Canelo Alvarez. Should Frank Martin get the call, he could give Gervonta Davis all he could handle, but for those who believe he can do what 29 others haven't, Leonard Ellerbe, CEO of Mayweather Promotions, he's convinced that you've lost your mind. Frank Martin can't beat Tank Davis. Ellerbe told Sean Zeidel of FightHype.com, none of those guys can beat Tank Davis. Frank's a good-ass fighter. He can't beat Tank, though.
Why is Leonard Ellerbe still speaking on Gervonta Davis's behalf? I thought Gervonta left Mayweather Promotions.
Why is Leonard still in the picture? Why is Leonard still fielding questions in reference to a fighter that by all rights he doesn't promote anymore? Or does he? It's unclear
It is.
at this time. What exactly is Gervonta Davis' situation? Who is he going to fight next?
Yes.
When is he going to fight?
You don't think he's gonna fight Conor Benn?
No, I don't. Gervonta Davis last saw action in April of last year opposite the ring, Ryan Garcia. And we now know that he's not going to be returning in March. He's not the one who's going to kick off the big Amazon deal, what seems to be little more than just a distribution deal. In any event, he won't be fighting in March. So if he's coming back, I guess it's after March. Maybe in April, though if it is, it will be a year. It will have been a year's time since he last saw action. Frank's right there. Frank is a PBC fighter.
Frank's not doing anything. He walked away from that Shakur Stevenson fight for what was the newly vacated WBC title.
Frank Martin's name continues to pick up traction as a potential opponent for Gervonta Davis. Ellerbe, though, wouldn't confirm or deny whether or not he's the front runner. For those who are waiting patiently for something to be announced, Ellerbe made it known that when the time comes, you'll hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Tank will decide who he's fighting, and when he decides that, he'll make an announcement. Tank is the boss. He'll be fighting soon. Now, in September of last year, Frank Martin withdrew from what was supposed to be the Shakur Stevenson fight for the WBC title, and many took to theorizing that the reason that he pulled out of that fight was so that he could fight in this one. Though, given how much time has passed between September and now, it wasn't an either-or situation. You could have still fought Shakur late last year, and if you won, you had plenty of time to still fight Gervonta this one.
Yeah, if he won, but he wasn't gonna win that fight. He was gonna lose that fight. He knows he was gonna lose that fight. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. And that's the real reason that he pulled out.
It was never an either-or situation, that it's either you fight Shakur or you fight Gervonta. If you're even fighting Gervonta, as no one has confirmed or denied that Frank is going to get that fight, though on the predication that he is in the running, given how much time has passed, it was never an either-or situation. There was plenty of time for you to fight Shakur last year, and if you win, you still got plenty of time to fight Gervonta.
Frank wanted more money. That's what he said. He wanted more money. They offered him 7 figures for the fight, and bear in mind, Frank Martin is not a 7-figure fighter. He doesn't make that for fighting guys like Michel Rivera or Artem Haratunian. They offered him more money than he normally makes, but he still wanted more.
More than that. So he walks away from the fight, sits out the rest of the year, doesn't do nothing. We don't know who he's going to fight this year, when he's going to fight this year.
We don't know. It's an assumption that Frank is even in the running for a Gervonta Davis fight. That's an assumption. On the predication that he gets the fight, I can tell you here and I can tell you now, Gervonta will not do with Frank Martin what he did with Ryan Garcia last year. He won't.
He did over 1 million pay-per-view buys with Ryan. I don't think he does 500,000 pay-per-view buys with Frank. And that's if Frank gets the fight. If Frank doesn't get the fight, well, I thought Frank's on the right side of the street. He's with the right people, with the right team, under the right banner. If he don't get the fight, well, what's the explanation gonna be? All this time people have been saying he turned down Shakur so he can go fight Gervonta. But if he doesn't fight Gervonta,
then what was the point in turning down Shakur? You walked away from a world title, you walked away from 7 figures so that you don't end up fighting Gervonta?
double jeopardy. Since having made the announcement that they're jumping into bed with Amazon Prime, the PBC haven't had any fight dates in January, they don't have any in February, and they don't really kick off the deal until the end. The very end of March.
Frank isn't on the undercard of Tszyu versus Keith Thurman, so if they're gonna get him out there, I'm going to assume it must be later on.
Frank Martin last saw action in July of last year. In that way, it hasn't been a year's time yet. It hasn't been a year since he last fought. Though given that the PBC have such limited resources and such limited fight dates, he's not fighting on the Tszyu versus Keith Thurman undercard. It is conceivable that it could be a year's time before he fights again.
Unless he wins the sweepstakes and lands the Gervonta Davis fight. See what the article said. Leonard Ellerbe did not confirm or deny that Frank is going to get that fight.
Frank, for Gervonta, that's not exactly a big money fight. So I don't actually know if he's going to get it or if he's really in the running. Just have to wait and see. Men's junior middleweight news. Tszyu rips Erickson Lubin. They start getting cold feet. It was the collapse of the Erickson Lubin fight, now the Keith Thurman fight.
Is Keith Thurman supposed to be an upgrade from Erickson?
Tszyu, 29, wasn't surprised when he was given the news. Actually, he saw it coming. It's typical, you know, Tszyu told a group of reporters. They start getting cold feet, so what do I do? The show goes on. As Tszyu alludes to, the show will certainly go on officially. He'll fight for just the second time in America against Keith Thurman on March 30th at a catch weight of 155. The catch weight is due to the WBO not sanctioning this bout. They don't think Keith Thurman is a worthy adversary, a worthy combatant for the WBO title, coming off of 2 years of inactivity and having done absolutely nothing in the junior middleweight division where he isn't even ranked. So they denied to sanction this fight.
They're not going to lower the bar of standard to accommodate Keith Thurman and give him a title shot that he doesn't deserve. Even if Tszyu is willing to give him one, they won't allow it.
What I consider quality control from an alphabet organization, a sanctioning body, and what passes for a title fight in today's day and age. I said it before and I'll say it again. I think if it were the WBC or the WBA, they would have actually allowed it, but the WBO...
They won't allow it. They're not going to allow the PBC and their matchmakers and just whatever they have going on over there, they're not going to allow them to further lower the bar of standard. They won't stand for it, and I applaud them for that.
I've been prepping for a southpaw for about 7 weeks now, so I've been going pretty hard now, but I'm a little happier that it's Keith Thurman. He's a bigger name, caliber of fight is now bigger. I think that Tszyu has a gross misapprehension of who Keith Thurman is in today's boxing landscape, especially in America. Now, maybe he was a big name in 2016 and 2017, maybe even 2019, but in 2024, he's a has-been.
Tim should be able to knock him out. Tim's young, big, young, strong guy, pressure fighter, mid-range to inside fighter, body puncher, and we all know that Keith, he's weak to the body, he's vulnerable to the body, so by all rights, Tszyu should take care of him if he does.
He's got options. He's got a lot of options. He could stay right there at 154, pursue the other alphabet titles, pursue the winner of Fundora versus Bohachuk for the WBC, pursue the winner of Bakram Murtazalia versus Jack Colquet for the IBF. The advantage in those fights is that Tszyu has more marquee value than any of those guys, than any of those fighters. He's a bigger name than any of them, so he will have A-side status. Those are fights that he could potentially bring to Australia. So he could pursue those fights. He could pursue a fight with Terence Crawford, defend the title against him. That would be a fight with a bigger profile than the aforementioned fights, and he can do all of this. right there at 154, so long as he beats Keith. Now, if he decides to move up,
Why would he want to move up?
he could move up for the winner of Erislandy Lara versus Michael Zarafa, whoever that winner is. We know that Lara, he's WBA champion, but he's getting up there in age. We also know that Michael Zarafa is Tszyu's domestic rival. They were supposed to fight something like 2 years ago, but Michael Zarafa pulled out. If he becomes WBA champion, if he upsets the apple cart for Lara, a fight between Michael and Tim could be a very big fight in Australia, and Tim's chance to become a 2-division champion.
I don't think it's an accident that Lara versus Zarafa ended up on the undercard of a fight that Tszyu is headlining.
If Michael Zarafa wins, takes the title from Lara, Tim can move up and fight him. If Lara keeps the title, same deal. It's a smaller fight with Lara because Lara's never been a big name. He's been a solid name and a solid fighter, but not a big name.
He's 40 years old.
Comes to Michael Zarafa versus Erislandy Lara. The thing about that fight is that Michael Zarafa, while being younger than Lara, he's never had the same talent level as Lara. So even here and now at 40 years old, Lara might beat that guy. And if he does, Tim can move up and fight him. Tim just so happens to have the right base style for a pure boxer, an economic puncher like Erislandy Lara. Lara, being 40 years old, his legs aren't what they used to be, so they may not be able to get him out of trouble if he's under pressure. I remember in the Brian Castano fight, what was that, 2-3 years ago? Maybe longer? It's a wonder that Lara made it past that guy. Their fight ended in a draw.
Pure boxers don't like pressure, and Brian Castano, he's a pressure fighter. So was Jarrett Hurd, who beat Erislandy Lara some years before that, took his WBA title at junior middleweight.
Jarrett Hurd, Brian Castano, Tszyu. These are all pressure fighters, and pure boxers like Lara, they don't like pressure. So if by some chance Lara manages to stay WBA champion and he beats Michael Zarafa, there's still an area of opportunity there for Tim to move up and wait and take that title from him. So he's got that option. He's got options. I will say that here today, the landscape at 154, it is more interesting than landscape at 160. That's the caveat. That 154 is a deeper, more vibrant division here today than 160 is. At 154, yeah, you can have unification matches and pursue the other titles, what other champions arise, but there are also fights that can be built, like a Virgil Ortiz fight or a Xander Zayas fight. Those youngsters, those unbeaten up-and-comers, over time, a fight between them and Tszyu, those can be built into mega fights.
They can.
Tim seems to have an interest in making a splash in the American market. I don't know why, since the UK market is a lot more vibrant, but if he wants to make a splash in America, he could make one, not just by becoming a unified champion, but having those mega fights with Xander Zayas, with Virgil Ortiz, and what other contenders arise. That 154 does have a bit more to offer than 160. The virtue of going to 160 is you get to become a 2-division champion. Moreover, if and when Jermel Charlo comes back, because when he comes back, I'm assuming he's going to come back as a middleweight. He's done at 154. If he comes back at 160 and say he fights Carlos Adames, beats Carlos Adames, becomes WBC champion, him and Tim can pick up where they left off, because we know they were supposed to fight. They were supposed to fight at 154. If they both become champions at 160, you got yourself a decent-sized fight right there. So like I said, this kid's got options. And if things with the PBC start to dry up due to their scarcity of resources, don't forget that he's also promoted by No Limit, who are fully capable of doing shows for him in Australia, as they have been doing for some time now. So the world is his oyster, and he's got a lot of options.